On August 17th, 2016, a little over a year after Undertale released, an automated web crawler run by a digital archivist happened over the URL Deltarune.com. Looking at the capture, the website was entirely blank, but give it a good old Control-A and there's something there. A 391 by 235 pixel image known as him.png. Open this image up in any respectable image manipulation program and increase the brightness and contrast, and you get... Three heroes appeared to banish the Angel's heaven. Angel's heaven. Him.png is one of the very first pieces of information we've ever had about the plot of Deltarune. It isn't the first, because there's an even earlier version of it that appears to have been archived manually, but it's just entry number 17, so it's very, very not interesting because we knew it already. This represented new material. Because before there was a Deltarune, there has always been an Angel. Deltarune is no stranger to weird little guys infesting the narrative. This image right here dates back to last September, a product of the normal analysis that never came to be. Even without new chapter, it's already obsolete. Add real Mike to the list. But the Angel is special. It's of clear importance to the setting, likely more so than any of the other unexplained Deltarune mystery guys, and we know next to nothing about it. Like, we have the background, but nothing to actually fill the gaps to get anything out of it. Toby Fox, to his credit, has done a remarkable job of cleaning up any loose ends and connections we could have drawn to get something out of it. This and, well, everything else, makes the Angel, for lack of a better term, the Deltarune Theory final boss. And I feel comfortable saying this. Compare the Angel to someone like Gaster, a character so generationally confounding that he has his own Wikipedia page. He, bare minimum, has the decency enough to talk to us and be an actual character sometimes. The Angel, on the other hand, only speaks in silence. All this has naturally lent itself to a bit of community speculation about everyone's favorite Chekhov's ICBM. Point being, getting a grip on such a plot-relevant character would yield enormous dividends in nearly every Deltarune field of research. So, what's the best way to find more about a character that has been specifically designed to be theory bomb-proof? You staple someone else to it. A traditional hallmark of night analysis, this school of thought simply takes one character and welds them to another. It assumes the thing we're after is a title, not a name, and in our case, that nearly anyone can be the Angel given the proper support, evidence, and horrific divine transformation. I'm being reductive here, so I sound like I'm saying this is a bad thing. It isn't. When we got nothing to go off on, anything helps. But unlike the rich battleground of the night, all discourse about the Angel is ground to a halt and crystallized onto three primary candidates. These being Noel Angel, Gaster Angel, and Player Angel. There's not anything bad by this, by the way. It makes sense. Each of these Angel theories has a small mountain of evidence behind it, and because of the way they've all been set up, they all exist independently of one another. But I really cannot undersell the complete dominance of what I've been calling the Big Three. For a fun exercise, type Deltarune Angel Theory into YouTube and see what you get. Here, I did it for you. I arbitrarily selected 27 videos and got results looking like this. This isn't surprising because theories that are more popular tend to be this way because they're more correct. With a few notable exceptions, of course. So what am I here for? Well, I feel like it should have been fairly obvious by now that I have a different Angel in mind when I think about the Angel. Specifically, the Angel. By going about the same process as the Big Three, you can staple the enigmatic character known as the Angel to the Angel, and end up with a theory I've been calling Angel. Sounds redundant, and yeah, it is, but this thing's been talked about so rarely that I couldn't even find a catchy theory name for it. As is the mission statement for the channel, if no one else is going to do it, then I will. I'm going to make a case for Angel. So this video you may or may not watch is a walkthrough through the core tenets and beliefs of Angel, what it is, why it's credible, and what you can do with it. This isn't really an analysis, but more of a looking at the game through this specific lens kind of thing. So you aren't screaming at me about it later, it's good to tell you up front I will not be talking about the Angel in relevance to any real-world religions in this video. I will instead use whatever the heck Hometown's religion is. I have a number of thoughts about this, but it boils down to Toby Fox not go through the effort of world building an entire religion for it to be some kind of bootleg Catholicism knockoff. Well, he did, but I'll just forget I said anything. You can draw these connections, I don't think you'd be wrong to, but know that I personally am not going to do this in the video. To start this thing off, I'm going to introduce this theory through a theory thesis of sorts. If you analyze Hometown's religion with Angel in mind, it leads to a characterization of it that I find particularly compelling. More compelling is what it does the rest of the story, but we'll get there when we get there. So, without further ado. As I'll be analyzing Hometown's religion for this part, I have to say that it is, in a word, weird. I'll say this a lot, and you'll get tired of me saying it. But it's true. This is the first time Toby Fox has tackled the construction of a full-scale religion in his work. Undertale cheated this process by only having a baseline level of spirituality in the setting. Rituals to commemorate the dead and belief in an angel that will save them. Not full-scale organized religion with holidays and holy texts. It's a completely different beast this time around, and this is what marks the first key pillar of evidence supporting Angel. Unlike all the other angels, you don't need to make any assumptions to reconcile the idea of a pre-existing character being the angel. It works out of the box. Just so we're on the same page, because I don't know if it was confusing earlier, I'm proposing that the angel from the prophecy is the angel from Hometown's religion. It's a new character that we haven't seen yet because it's the same character. This is what I mean by Angel. I had to make this clear because otherwise you could trip over Undertale Angel or Real World Angel or, I guess, any other angel, and I'm not doing that. It's Prophecy Angel equals Religion Angel. The angel is the angel, the religion is the prophecy. Same thing. Anyway, I'm sure that was super helpful. Because we're making this direct association, it's worth it to go back through Hometown's religion and see what you can do if you assume the angel is a new character. First, let's start and how the angel watches people. Specifically, watches over them. This is a trait shared by essentially every single deity in existence, the whole God is watching thing, but this is really hammered in by the game. Alvin says it, Caddy says it, and unused dialogue, one of Clover's leaflets says it. This guy is confirmed to have big ol' peepers. Metaphorically speaking. Now, this implies something interesting about the angel. It's not that his eyes or whatever, that's useless. It's that by the sheer act of watching, the angel seems to have a vested and continuous interest in the world. An interest that requires attention. You could call it a desire. I know that's the one word that comes up all the time with angel theories, and believe me, we'll get to it shortly, but the fact that it's watching it all is really important. Desire indicates that it wants something to happen. But the angel's been keeping its eyes on this, so not only does it really want it to happen, it actually cares about it happening. Why else would it be watching? So if the angel is invested in its desire, it's likely exerting effort into making it happen. But how can it do that? The angel, from our understanding, seems a little lacking in the body department. It doesn't look like it can physically intervene in the narrative, or at least, not yet. I have the distinct impression that if it could, it would have done something by now. When dealing with bodily challenged deities, it's a thing in most religions that followers kind of enforce the will of those that they worship. As in, they set the example, it's up to us to speak for them. But Hometown's religion is, again, weird. They have a holy text, and typically this is what dictates the actions of a religion's followers. But the prophecy is just a storybook. Like, no, seriously, it is. It's not telling you to do anything. It's just a novel. People can adapt this thing into video games and stuff. It's quite unlike any other religious text, and Toby Fox is aware of this. The way Hometown's religion's followers act isn't dictated by their book directly, but by how they interpret it. For instance, you're supposed to be super nice to everyone you meet because you don't know if the one person you're mean to could be one of the heroes that'll end up saving you. This isn't a rule, people break it all the time, but this is what defines their code of ethics. They act based on what would make sense from what they know of it. If the angel's trying to tell them to do something in the prophecy, it's doing a terrible job. So it's powerless, right? This guy can't do anything. Well, this is, again, weird, but I think Hometown's religion's followers believe the exact opposite. From what I understand, the angel's characterized to be a bit of a control freak. This is a bold claim, I know, but I don't lack the evidence for this. Followers look to the angel for guidance. It lights the way on the path of life. Sounds nice, right? But check out what Alvin has to say about Asgore. This is a man struggling so bad, he's their Bible's definition of suffering. He goes to church and prays every night in an attempt to find some peace with his catastrophically terrible life. Father Alvin, when prompted, doesn't say, "Oh, I hope the angel lends him a hand." He says, "The poor man. It seems the angel has made a difficult path for him." And look, he does the exact same thing with Alphys. "Let us pray that the angel will smile upon her." With the way he's phrased it, the angel isn't helping these people. It's doing something else. Something deliberate. Because it sounds to me that the angel works not by suggesting what path you should follow, but by deciding for you. And if the prophecy is to be believed, it made that decision a long time ago. That's not all though. You know how they don't believe in sin? Because Hometown's religion is different, I guess. They disagree with the idea it's possible to commit sin, likely under the offenses against God interpretation of the word. This stuck out to me as something that was weirdly emphasized, and with the idea that the angel chooses what happens for you, what if it's not that they don't believe in sin because the angel doesn't take offense in things? It's because if they committed a sin, it was the angel that made them do it. I mean, a bit hyperbolic here, but I really do believe that their entire lives been decided for them. This isn't a pluribus scenario. The angel isn't directly controlling everyone as we do with Chris. It's more like the angel always sets things up to where you're always doing what it wants. Just look at the game. You're constantly railroaded because of spontaneous traffic jams and police tape and rainstorms. You can't do anything but progress the plot, progress the prophecy. This long chain of questions then becomes, why are they okay with this? This is like the free will thing on steroids. You can do whatever you want to do, but things are still going to happen because someone else said so. And here is where I say that there's an answer to this. Angel's silver bullet, what it offers that no one else can. This answer lies within the prophecy, the purpose of the prophecy. I know that this thing's a tired subject for all of us, especially by now, but I need you to lock in for a minute. The dots connect. There is an angel who is watching and cares about what's happening, and it wants something. To accomplish this something, it has drafted a plan. The tale which must be followed, the prophecy. You see, Deltarune's one ending thing is actually a massive lie. We've had more than one ending since the survey program. Don't believe me? Watch this. This is what happens straight from the Gaster's mouth when the prophecy isn't followed. The world ends. How it happens is irrelevant. What's important is that it happens regardless. Because if you don't follow the prophecy, everyone dies. This is the reason why no one gets to choose who they are in this world. Everyone has to be okay with the role the prophecy is chosen for them because this is the only way. It's a matter of life or death. We already knew the prophecy saves the worlds. It requires something of a sacrifice, yes, but the end result is still desirable. So, then, if the angel did all of this for a reason and truly cares about the result, then I think the angel's desire is actually to save the worlds. Or maybe something that can only happen immediately after the worlds are saved. Because if the prophecy's purpose is to avert calamity, and is the angel's prophecy, then I think it may very well be the angel's purpose. This is why people trust in the path it gives them. Rarely do they ever complain, because the angel has your best interest in mind. There's only one way to save everyone. Everyone except those who had to be sacrificed for the prophecy to happen. This characterizes the angel as a utilitarian. It's working towards the greater good for the greatest number of people. Its methods may be cruel, but it is technically on the side of good. It wants to save people. And it's not a hypocrite either. If this truly is its desire, then it sacrifices itself in the process. The angel is good and holy and has reason to be worshipped. The ending it offers might not be a happy one, but it's the best one it could find. And it's going to make it happen no matter what happens. I know that was a lot, but this is the characterization I've come to with Angel. It's actually the foundation of the theory. The angel exists, wants the prophecy to happen, to save the worlds. Simple, straightforward, and relatively clean as far as theories go. I don't know how much of a reach this sounded like, because after all, I'm the one writing the video, but I don't feel like this is that bad. Hometown's religion suggests that the angel is trying to do something. Combine it with the prophecy, and it makes sense that it's trying to make the prophecy happen because it ends with the best outcome for almost everyone. Like, let me reiterate. The prophecy ends badly, yes, but things could always be much, much worse. Rousey even admits as such in the Weird Route, where he's terrified because as bad as the prophecy is, he fears what he doesn't know even more. And this is another do just trust me, we'll get to it eventually, but this conclusion does actually tie in pretty neatly with the game's themes. You don't have to believe all of it, but just that the angels making things happen for a specific outcome is the de facto answer for our lack of agency in this game. You get a lot out of a little, and this is what makes Angel such a compelling theory to me. So, now that we've got what it is down, on the long road to explaining what you can do with it, we had to make a bit of a detour. It's not a good detour, it's actually more of a weird route, if I could call it that. Because I have a bit of an agenda. A hot minute ago, I said that this video is to cover why this theory is credible. The way I'm going to do this is not by advocating for Player Angel, but by against the sole member of the big three it cannot coexist with. Evidence in favor of it is evidence against Angel, and vice versa. I hate saying this, and believe me, with the state of how things are right now, I really shouldn't. But just as I am Angel's strongest soldier, I am Player Angel's greatest denier. I don't believe this theory, and frankly, I'm shocked as I see this much traction post chapters 3 and 4. The evidence in favor of Player Angel, while compelling, cannot provide an adequate answer for the many problems this theory has. So, to show you why I think Angel is credible, I'm going to go over why I think Player Angel isn't. This also serves a dual purpose of going over the last bits of Angel evidence, so there is a point to this, and I'm not just doing this for no reason. But I don't need you to believe me. You can believe whatever you want to believe. I just want to make the people calling it obvious shut up for a minute and stop saying you'd be crazy to think otherwise. Although, in this case, they would have been half right. Okay, no, I'm not going that hard. For full transparency, as far as theories go, I like Player Angel. I work by a flexible interpretation of the word theory that says that a good theory allows you to look at something from a different perspective, to see things you normally wouldn't, the whole but what if thing all over again. To me, being correct is entirely irrelevant. If you made the Pluie Knight Master Doc a stunning piece of analysis, it would be under my criteria of a good theory. Bad theories do the opposite. They're nothing burgers. Chris Slash is a bad theory because it proposes that Chris is working with the Knight, and they can slash really hard. I feel bad hating on someone else's work, but this doesn't even do anything. Player Angel does a lot, and I can't hate it under my definition. My main piece of animosity towards it is that, forgive me for saying this, but it's just too popular. That's fine, but when you have a theory that rules over everything, what happens is when people make their own stuff, they branch off from it. Think of it like a tree. I enjoy watching these things, and I've seen theories after theories, interpretations after interpretations say, oh yeah, the player is the angel, so we're going to do this, and it becomes irreversibly contaminated. If the tree falls down, it's now taking you with it. I'm so cautious about this kind of thing that I'm afraid to even use Death Knight. I used it in the last video, and I quote, I think it's by far the most believable Knight candidate, and it'd be the most interesting to choose plot-wise. Now that I'm older and wiser, remove that last part, Alfie's Knight would go pretty hard, but notice that I only stuck this on after I made the first part of the theory. I don't think his entire procedure is necessarily the correct or right way to go about this. I'm just telling you this so you can understand how I feel about these things. So you can understand how I feel about Player Angel. I think it's too big for its own good. A healthy dose of skepticism would improve the theory. So, let's get started at an old classic. The Angel Doll. I know. The smoking gun of Player Angel. You literally control the angel. The symbolism couldn't get any clearer. Go back to literary analysis preschool. Let's do a play-by-play. There is an angel doll on top of the legally distinct from Christmas holiday tree. The tree falls over. The angel doll lands on top of us. Our movement is now restricted to one axis and slowed to a crawl. Gee, I'll take a username. It almost seems to me like something has come from above, dropped on us, and forced us into doing a sequence of events that only ends one way. Now that I think about it, that sounds familiar, don't you think? It doesn't even have to be Angel. This looks more to me like it's symbolism for the prophecy. It ominously looms over the narrative, preventing you from doing what you want to do when it comes crashing down on you. But that's not all. Not even close. Remember the desire? The one thing we know for absolute certain about the Angel? Well, there isn't a single answer that I like for this that Player Angel provides. From the writer's perspective, if you assume the player has a desire, then you're making an assumption out of the audience. You're trying to guess what they're thinking at the time. This isn't a bad thing inherently, and Toby Fox is actually really good at it. Chapter 1 subverted expectations by looking like an Undertale clone. Chapter 3 assumes you think the boards are boring, and Chapter 4 is Chapter 4. But this all assumes you would feel something. That's low risk. A desire is different. It's assuming you directly want something out of the game. This is extremely dangerous. Probably one of the most dangerous things a writer can do. Let's say your desire is to finish the game. It works for most audiences, but there's going to be someone who's not going to like that the game ended. Susie is our in-game stand-in for this idea. It's not universally applicable. How about getting a happy ending? John Grimdark over here only likes sad and miserable endings. His desire was not accomplished and he still got banished. So now he's sad and miserable. What about getting our vessel back? Someone started on Chapter 2 because he heard Chapter 1 was expository filler from their moron friend. They get to Chapter 7 and say, Gaster, what the heck is this? Because they got assigned a default vessel that they never even knew existed. It doesn't even universally work on a desire that you played the game. I know someone who rage quit on Jackenstein. How that even happened is a question I dared not ask, but they never played the game since. What kind of desire would that be? To wimp out not even halfway through the story? Maybe I'm being super lame, but Player Angel doesn't have a good desire. It always makes an assumption out of you, and this doesn't always work. It's like those scenes in Marvel movies where they hold the camera on the heroes and expect you to clap and cheer. If you're not feeling it, it feels kind of embarrassing, and this is what the desire asks out of you. Okay, I just realized if I kept this little dialogue up, this part will be as long as the last one, so let's pick up the pace. The topic of light is where things get a bit more complicated. Both the angel and heaven are connected to light, and because Toby Fox hates us, so is the soul. The soul being able to produce light like this is a new development as far as souls go, and apparently it's our power. This implies we're the light bulb, which means this is irrefutable Player Angel evidence. You win! I'm stumped. I don't know why the soul can do this. It doesn't seem like something it can do at the drop of a hat, which trends mildly towards me thinking it's divine assistance, but I'm not bold enough to stand behind that claim. I will use an unheal prayer though. This spell calls upon heavenly light to heal wounds, and while it does cost TP, Rousey can pop this thing off whenever when he's outside of battle. The angel is the only being that we know of that has a heaven, and if we're the source of light the spell uses, then I guess we got Bluetooth. The save points are another weird spot with light, but if the light only you can see is some kind of angel thing as well, then Chris could use this before we were ever a part of the equation. I actually kind of like the idea that the angel is the one that gave Chris this ability, because it lines up with the idea that the angel is obsessed with making the prophecy happen. Making sure the local androgynous teenager you're going to feed to the prophecy wood chipper actually makes it to the wood chipper in the first place is a purpose easily accomplished by the ability to save your game. But aren't the save files managed by Gaster? Good eye, and don't worry, we'll get there. Moving on to the lightning round. If you're an Andrew Cunningham and find Raise Up Your Bat be particularly compelling, then your player angel is a demon heart that cries. How the angel also can do. I choose to exist in blissful ignorance of Raise Up Your Bat because it does terrible things to people. Heart-related symbolism is weirdly common throughout the game, and Chapter 4 even makes a direct allusion between it and the soul. I've seen the argument made that the door in Castletown that leads to the Grand Fountain, depicting a winged heart, is player angel evidence. And no, I see it. But it also has a crown on it. Is that king angel evidence? It also has 6 wings. As for the Deltarune, the angel only has 2. I know that this door is an abstraction because Chris, Susie, and Rousey aren't triangles, but I find it too ambiguous to prove anything. And since we're on the topic, the existence of Now Taken Town is weird, but as of right now, only Gaster and this guy are known to know this. And this guy is super Gaster coded. Copies are monochrome, wait, don't, they're in between. I'd argue this in the direction of Gaster, not Player Angel. There's a lot of imagery of the Deltarune alongside the 3 heroes, and I've seen this argued as a depiction of the Angel, and then Player Angel. We actually already exist as a character in the prophecy, just as a package with Chris. The cage with human soul and parts. We're the human soul, Chris is the parts. Angelic things often get depicted as the Deltarune, so I think Divine Assistance is the better answer under this context. Besides, we're the only character that can banish things thus far, so unless someone holds up a mirror, we can't banish ourselves. Although I do agree that we will be banished in some way because you can't play the game forever. You know, that reminds me of something. It's a rant. I have seen time and time again that this scene right here is indisputable proof of Player Angel's existence. People unironically argue that you're supposed to see yourself in the reflection of your screen, and because you look really scary to these pixel art people, it's obvious that you're the angel. It's such a Toby thing to do. You can't be serious. For real. This is ridiculously popular considering how ridiculous it is. First of all, Deltarune's pixel art ain't even diegetic. In case you forgot, humans don't have a head the third the size of their body. Neither does Rousey have miraculously rotating horns. I can go on, but I won't, because I have my limits. And this is a wall. Yes, it accomplishes the same thing as a black screen, but it's blocking a depiction of the angel. It's 1,000 times less of reach to assume the reason it's black here is because the angel's identity is spoiler material and we aren't supposed to see it yet. Not assuming it's some insane troll logic that it's your sweaty gamer visage looking back at you. This is the one thing that infuriates me the most about Player Angel. People using this incredibly flimsy piece of evidence because it sounds subversive. It tilts me, and I'm not trying to be a reaction YouTuber. I'm reading from a script that comes from stream of consciousness because I'm an unk who was taught to touch type and can keep up with the pace of my own thoughts. I don't want to knock anyone for believing in Player Angel. You're supposed to somehow take this part of the video in good faith. But please, I'm begging you, stop using the reflection thing as evidence. It's so bad. Use anything else. The light thing is indisputable. That should be your first piece of evidence and not this nonsense. Because it's worth reminding you about, I am just one random loser on the internet. My word is less than worthless. But even then, I would encourage you to think carefully next time you add Player Angel to the next super comprehensive "it explains everything" theory you're trying to make. It's not the golden goose you think it is, and like all other theories, it cannot explain everything. The angel was one of the hardest, most speculative theory topics. You kinda act like it. Well, that was the worst thing I think I've ever done. Let's cool off a bit. For the remainder of the video, I'll be going over 3 interpretations one can derive from Angel. If you aren't familiar with how theory videos work, this is the part of the video where I go from analyzing the game to thinly veiled fanfiction. I can't say I'm terribly in love with this, but this is just the way it has to work for you to apply what you've covered. This is also the point where I break the fourth wall. I cannot deny the obvious anymore. Chapter 5 is about Imminent, and I'm recording this voiceover at 8:26 a.m. Central Daylight Time on June 21st. This is the last day I have to work on this, so the editing is going to be even more rushed than usual on the last remaining subparts. These subparts are the "what you can do with it" of Angel. It's a number of brief mini-theories that I've had floating around this video's draft doc since last June. You've probably heard at least one of these before, but I'd be amazed if you've heard all 3. Chapters 3 and 4 had a lot more in it to discuss that no one got around to talking about. Especially me, because I dropped out of the face of the earth after releasing one incredibly bad video. Sorry guys. I'll start off with what's probably the largest implication of Angel. It gives the game an antagonist. The occupant of Deltarune's prestigious Antag slot has been a subject thoroughly explored across the 4 eras of analysis. In summary, it's complicated. Right now, the game's antagonist is pretty solidly the Roaring Knight. They've been our enemy since day 1 and are solely responsible for moving the plot forward. This is like the one part of the game I describe as clear cut. I think we can all agree on this one. However, Deltarune has a lot of moving parts, and the Knight's motives, as mysterious as they are, cannot explain everything that's been going on chapter by chapter. There's just too much. The Knight's cool, yeah, but it's fairly limiting as an antagonist. And I'm not the only one that feels this way. While surfing the net, as one does, I've seen a lot of fondness towards the idea of an additional antagonist. One that's on top of the others, a bigger bad guy. This spot right here is where I think an Angel would reside. Why I think this is hard to explain, but hang on, I got something. This is an old excerpt from part 0 of the script, back when the video was called All About the Angel. This video was originally supposed to be a full Angel analysis, but someone ended up making basically exactly what I was going to make, so I ended up scrapping the first draft. Normally, this would probably feel frustrating, but to me, it was the greatest thing ever. Shout out to this video right here for freeing me from including 40 minutes of Angel analysis before talking about the theory I wanted to bring up. The only reason why I'm reusing this old snippet instead of making a new one is that I found it unusually dense for my style of writing. As I'm short on time, this is about as good as it gets. And just like the rant, you can skip this part, but I wouldn't recommend it this time. Deltarune, as framed by the writer, is going to have one ending. This is accomplished in-universe by the prophecy, an instruction manual to save the worlds that must be followed, and out-of-universe by the fact that this world was never real in the first place. What you are experiencing when you play the game is a carefully coordinated series of scripts and triggers that pushes the plot forward every time you enter the next room. This isn't a never-ending adventure where we go from dark world to dark world having a fun time, this is an indie RPG. We are bound by the technology of our time to a linear narrative with a fixed endpoint. This means that Deltarune has to come to an end. But this ending is bad, so we don't want to let it happen. But it has to happen, because otherwise the world is doomed. So, the characters in-universe have resolved themselves to find some way to crack the code, to both save the worlds and end up with a happy ending, defying the narrative itself. Undertale does something similar. You're intended to go through it first on a neutral route, playing it like any other game. If it captured your interest, you give it another go to either earn your happy ending or kill everyone. The neutral ending is at best bittersweet and at worst horrifying. You're supposed to want to change it to something else if you care about the characters. Get the best possible ending and Undertale goes further, shaming you for replaying it, saying that if you really cared, you wouldn't dare touch what you've accomplished. Deltarune has no such moral quandaries, because it's not us changing things, it's Gaster, apparently. I hate bringing him up out of nowhere, but nothing I'm about to say is hyperbole. It's real. Dr. W.D. Gaster is, for whatever reason, interested in injecting himself into the narrative. He's the one who connected us, the soul, to the world of Deltarune and intends to create a new future with us. That's kind of funny, isn't it? A new future? In a world that's fated to only end one way? So Gaster wants something different to happen. His goals are, therefore, aligned with the fun gang. Not in the literal sense, but more in the cosmic horror sense. While he does love Chris, Susie, and Noelle, not Rowsley though he sucks, he's a man of science first, and through inaction is apparently quite okay with the weird route. But on that first part, everyone's still in agreement. We want a different ending. Gaster is using us as a monkey in a typewriter, and we're all on the same political axis, differing only in our method of execution. The only enemy being the way the game was written. But I don't really like this. Deltarune is a game that explores themes such as immersion in fiction and whether or not things that aren't real matter. There are characters who are invested, and there are those who are detached. It's all cool and fun, but we haven't gone to the same level of meta that Undertale did. The fiction thing is entirely handled through the Dark Worlds. There's no need to break the fourth wall here to prove a point. And on saving and reloading, nobody cares, and Gaster gives us such a long leash that we're allowed to do whatever we want. I think Deltarune is going in a different direction. A direction that requires the use of an antagonist. Because without the meta approach of this is the way the world works because the way it's been written, you kind of need one for it not to stick out. Deltarune is really cool because it resolves its themes in-game. The way they poke out a bit into the real world is intentional and part of what makes this game so fun to analyze. An antagonist who wants the plot to move forward accomplishes the same thing. An in-universe way to answer a question that exists out of universe. Is it possible to change the way a narrative has been written? This is what an Angel would do for the story. It will be a character who wants the narrative to happen and opposes any attempt to change it. This is what makes it an antagonist, fighting our attempts to defy the fate it has given us. I know that was a little wordy, so let me say it again once over. Deltarune really likes resolving its metatextual themes inside the game. This is one of its main differences from Undertale, which was more willing to break the fourth wall using meta-aware character Flowey. Gaster is useful in seeing how the game acts differently on this. He's like Flowey, except he doesn't care at all. The game doesn't bring any attention to this, aside from using it as a framing device in the Goner Maker. If you assume this is an intentional choice, which it is, the case of the prophecy becomes kind of strange. The game's narrative becomes your antagonist. But based on my understanding of how the game works, this feels a bit too on the nose. An overarching antagonist handling the narrative achieves the same result while keeping things relatively palatable. And if Gaster isn't willing to fill the slot because he's totally on board with us breaking things, you want an Angel. Another character who likes the way things are going and is willing to enforce it if necessary. The game kind of hands you one if you interpret Hometown's religion with this in mind, which is why I'm super convinced that Angel's a thing. This is the second part of the theory, just super convoluted and impossible to say properly without giving you media poisoning. This is what I think a game means by saying your choices don't matter. Your choices don't matter not because the game is nihilist, it looks to be quite the opposite actually. It's because the Angel, the being responsible for the narrative, quite literally can't let choices other than its own happen. To defy the prophecy means death, and this is what defines its motivations. This is a bit of a side topic, but it is worth mentioning. Did you know that the prophecy is actually a nickname? The thing's actual title is Deltarune. I'm not kidding. If the game's title is the prophecy, and the game's narrative is the prophecy, I don't think it's that much of a stretch to say that the game's antagonist could be the prophecy. The Angel works perfectly here, so there, done. No more brain-melting literary analysis. You survived. This does end up leaving something hanging though, and it's where I'll move to next. If Gaster's not our enemy, then what is he even doing? I do have something, but I don't think you're gonna like it. I think Gaster's trying to become the Angel. Yeah. No. Seriously. This might have felt like it came out of left field, but nowhere in here did I say I disliked Gaster Angel. I like Noelle Angel too, although I do end up completely ignoring it because Angel doesn't do anything to it. But in contrast, Mr. Green in between gets a bit of spice if you assume the seat of Angel is already occupied. It's the subpart. If you missed the little Deltaroteness indicator in the first 5 seconds of the video, I do actually assume some degree of Deltarune Theory background in my audience. It's not much, but you should probably know about the whole Gaster thing by now. There's several hundred videos you can watch on the subject, and as this one is long enough already, I won't give you the whole Gaster spiel. What I will do is explain how I think this changes things up a bit. As was briefly mentioned in the mandatory player Angel Bass break, I'm fairly warmed up to the idea of save points being a form of angelic assistance. They're provided to Chris as their secret power to ensure the prophecy happens. These are often connected to Gaster due to the extremely bizarre device-flavored save menu in Chapter 1, but Chapter 3 did something very, very interesting. When you lose to the Knight, it cares about Chris enough not to kill them. The game then forces you to roll crits afterwards, making it super annoying to retry. You have to force quit the game and restart over, and over, and over again. Or at least, you would have to, if someone didn't pick up on what you're doing. If you relaunch Chapter 3 after beating it, Doctor Speaks in Hands lets you get straight back to where you started to make retries far easier. This is something done entirely outside of the save points. It's purely a convenience for us, the player. A more jaded Deltarune fan would probably discard this, saying that this is not diegetic and you shouldn't use this as evidence. To this I say, you're right, but who's gonna stop me? I propose that Gaster is the one handling the save files, while the Angel is the one handling the save points. This might sound like a worthless distinction to make, but listen, having save points lets you do the prophecy. Having save files lets you break it. Gaster can rewind us in time and the save files all start at an initial point. Assuming it's all diegetic, these would be different timelines. If he's shattered across time and space and can do this stuff anyway, I don't see how this is too bad of an assumption to make. But let's move on to the Angel part. Recall back to the snippet you just heard in Antagonist. I believe Gaster wants us to break the prophecy. He loves if you do weird things and says, I look forward to creating a new future with you. Sounds pretty anti-prophecy to me. He then goes and says the bombshell line, my Deltarune, in Chapter 4's end credits, so he apparently considers Deltarune his. As Deltarune is not only the name of the game, but the name of the prophecy, good odds Wing Gaster wants to own the prophecy. How does one own the prophecy? I've answered it already. You become the Angel. How you do this? I have no idea. But Angel presents this as a war in heaven of sorts. Gaster connects us to break the prophecy. The Angel goes, thanks, shunts the soul into Chris, throws the vessel in the trash, and kicks the prophecy off anyway. Gaster then goes, okay, 2 can play at that game, and gives us a couple extra timelines to make cracking the prophecy less of a chore. Once things come to a head, maybe the Angel goes, that's it, I've had it, and gets itself physically involved. We kill the angel because we're goaded, and Gaster takes the throne and gets banished and gets his desire. Okay, I don't believe that last part, but I don't think some kind of multiversal Tom and Jerry is that far off. Gaster has to have some kind of motive for doing what he's doing, and the prophecy clearly states the angel gets banished and meets with its desire. This could wrap up Gaster's story if he's banished and gives us a better ending in some kind of ultra-hard, twisted route Kaizo Chapter 7. If anything, angel or not, I'm seriously convinced at least one part of this will be correct. This is the last subpart of the video, and by far the weirdest and most technical, which is kind of really saying something. As a fun fact, this was actually supposed to be the Christmas special, for I figured I should just put it in this video whenever I got around to making it. Which is now. There is something strange going on with stars and elements and water and tears. Someone already went over this, and you should have watched this video by now, but if you haven't, make sure to put Ink Theory on your Watch Later playlist. After the chapters dropped, I went down a similar train of thought on trying to figure out what the heck was going on with these things. The incomplete brain rot board was part of my efforts to understand this. Picking up where I left off, there is a single throwaway line in Chapter 4 from a random organic in the egg zone saying, "Why does the angel make its cry?" I've shown this already, but that's the angel. A proper noun. There's decent odds this is referring to the big A upstairs. Ink-pilled theory maxers will understand that there's an entity known as the Fallen Star in Deltarune's hidden narrative. Also in the egg zone, there's a book saying that the Fallen Star wept and made rivers with its tears. Then slowly, from the bitter water, something grew. It looked like glass. This bitter water fell in droplets from the sky. That's strange. You know what else is associated with the sky? Heaven. You know what else is associated with heaven? The angel. You know what else is associated with the angel? Apparently, now the Fallen Star. Assuming the angel's a new character lets you do this, and this could be actually really big if we knew what either were in the first place. The Fallen Star, alongside the angel, are beings we have been intentionally provided the bare minimum amount of evidence for. This is basically as far as you can get, because there aren't any more connections you can draw with this at the moment. But, as Chapter 5 might have an abundance of water in it, this will be something useful for a later date. Don't forget who told you that when something crazy happens. But this isn't what I've been calling the Star Conspiracy. It's like the first part, but this goes a bit deeper still. There is a game mechanic called elemental pairs. This is how Deltarune implements the classic RPG trope of elements in its gameplay. Each element is synced to another, and something that defends against one element defends against the other in its pair. The Shadow Mantle is a textbook example of this. It resists Tenna and the Old Man's star attacks as well as giant beams of pure darkness. A strange inversion of this idea occurs in the Black Shard. This is a weapon that has the near-exclusive property of Slay Dark, and it deals insane damage to things that have the dark element. Which implies that things don't actually belong to an elemental pair, and that's more like a defense item thing. The Titan is dark but not star, and it's the same case with its spawn. So individual creatures can belong to a single element. The star part comes into play with the elemental identity of the knight. It uses stars and knives, and these things both get resisted by the Shadow Mantle. The conspiracy part comes into play how it's coded. You see, I have a substantial computer science background. It's not what I went to college for, but it is what I'm kind of good at. I know not everyone finds this stuff interesting, so I'll make this as understandable as I can, but you can potentially interpret the way that elements, the Shadow Mantle, and the Black Shard are programmed in that they're all hiding the elemental identity of the knight. I hold the belief that Toby Fox originally considered data mining and code dumping unsportsmanlike conduct. Undertale featured a weird sound file that told you to stay away from this. The obvious happened, and then it got updated to be, well... Looking through Deltarune's code, I can see why Toby's laughing at us. He's come prepared this time around. Extra lore crumbs like the unused script have been thrown in alongside the most confounding stuff ever like the Toriel Deer variable. While he's no longer directly responsible for programming the game, some real effort has been put in to clean up unused rooms and dialogue, something that probably would not have been done if Toby Fox hadn't changed tack since Undertale. Now, the Japanese localization file foiled much of the dialogue cleanup, but the effort cannot be understated. They tried to get rid of things that could be too useful for analyzing the game. To make a long story short, The elemental identity of the knight, whether it's dark, star, or dark star, is completely obscured. It's not assigned one directly, only the attacks are. The dark shard only gains its ability to slay dark in chapter 4. If you cheated one in before the fight in chapter 3, it wouldn't do anything. And you're banned from attacking it in chapter 4, so you'd never be able to tell for sure. Now, in my professional opinion, this doesn't mean anything. The way it's programmed is a bit unorthodox, but it's nothing suspicious. The fact that everything leads away from pinning the knight onto anything other than Dark Star is, though. Because what if the character famously tied to darkness wasn't Dark type, or Dark and Star type, but just Star type? Fallen Star type. This whole nasty sequence of events is basically the one time you can draw a direct connection between the knight and the angel. Getting here at all wasn't easy, but this is kind of as far as you can go. This is the reason why I didn't make this as a Christmas special. It doesn't lead to a show-stopping conclusion. You can still spitball if you want. Let's say the knight's body, that seems to be made of shadow crystal, came from being dipped in angel tears during the knightification process. Actually, I think I'm just gonna wrap this one up. You don't need the star conspiracy to do this, but the knight being connected in some way to the angel isn't a bad conclusion to make. As it stands, the knight is just a tool for the prophecy. It plays exactly the role it needs to, fighting the heroes and advancing the roaring. In this way, the knight is one of the angel's pawns, someone equally a victim as Chris is. Subject to forces beyond their world, manipulated by something they can never understand. In this way, I can see something there. Angel isn't as subversive as I might have come off in this video. I wouldn't call it popular, but it's the easiest way to interpret the angel due to its role in Hometown's religion. Easy doesn't always get you anywhere, so this lens of analysis is often ignored, but not everything is some super ridiculous ARG. I think this is a good pull. I'm betting on this theory, at least the first and second parts of it. The rest of the parts are a little scuffed, so I'll just tuck it behind and leave it off here. If you enjoyed the video, and I do hope you did, consider doing the usual things people do if they like what they watched. If you didn't, then consider doing the opposite and get out of here. But if you're really bored though, and have some spare time, with the remainder of this outro, I would like to talk about the future of this channel. There won't be any editing for this part because I'm super out of time, so I'll just throw something up from the small mountain of Star Sector B-roll I have on my computer. First, I am very pleased to announce that I am back. For real this time. About a year ago, I anticipated that my future plans would have allowed me to make as many stupid videos as I would have liked. You can see this in the Soulless Night and its implications, where I say that future videos will take place in a time where I will have more time. Obviously, this didn't happen. Lots of other things happened, but not this. I got slammed, and was completely incapable of putting anything together. This was a lesson I had to learn. I tried making a full-fledged Rousey analysis, but it was poisoned by my state of being at the time. With the sole exception of the unlisted Weird Route excerpt, the Great Rousey normal analysis was a complete bust, and it really bothered me. But through no insignificant amount of effort on my part, I think I've left the getting tortured phase of my life behind. And I can actually start making videos. Obviously, this one was incredibly rushed, minus a script, which took forever. It was almost entirely produced over this weekend. I make these videos like a lasagna, where I complete a layer before moving on to the next one. I've watched the entire video by now, and I can't say I hate it, so I think I know what kind of pace I can work with. I have 2 points of data and could draw a line between them. I'll take my time on the next upload. After all, I gotta sit through chapter 5 first, but the hardest part is now over. I know how to make YouTube videos now. I can't guarantee they'll be good. They definitely won't all be about Deltarune. I make these videos out of frustration that they don't exist, and Deltarune is a well-treaded subject. There are many other interesting video games that aren't as talked about that I intend to cover. What I can guarantee is that they'll be like this one. Stupid and dumb and maybe interesting. If I can't make something good, I'll just make it really bad. There's an audience for this stuff, and I'm afraid to say, it's me. But until then, that's going to be it for me on this one. Thanks again for bearing with me. I hope you have a good rest of your evening, or morning, or afternoon.